whether it is to do with social media or curbing on misinformation, even deepfakes. We've all seen the role it's being playing not just with the youth, but also in terms of the role it's been playing in conflicts. And that's why when I met with the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, the first thing I asked him if AI is also a matter of human rights. And this is what High Commissioner Volker Türk had to say. Listen in to this World exclusive on World 360. I was so happy to see that you've spoken about how the India Impact Summit, as far as the AI Summit is concerned, is not about power, it's also about the people. Why do you say so?
Well, because at the end of the day, it all starts with us, right? It starts with our rights, it starts with our relationship among each other, it starts with our relationship also with the environment and with ecology, and technical tools are there to serve our well-being, our prosperity, our peace, and do good for us.
India is pitching itself as a power which will be able to democratize AI as well. And it's also leading the way as the voice of the global south. Do you think democratization is possible with big tech players from the United States and even from China dominating the market?
I mean, it's extremely important. That's why I'm also here when the Indian government invited me to have an AI summit in the global majority, in the global south, because it actually helps to break down the silos that we currently exist, about where do technological developments occur. And again, in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, there is Article 28 talks about science and how science has to become equitable for the whole of the world, not just, basically concentrated on a few players.
And this is years ago.
And this is almost 80
Wow.
years ago. So they already saw the importance of
And
that.
that's why I want to ask you, as a High Commissioner at the United Nations, that too of human rights, do you think AI is also about human rights?
Absolutely, because human rights is about power. Power means you can do extremely good things. You can transform society. You can help, fulfill the development goals of a country. But power also, if it's not exercised with constraints, it can subjugate, it can dominate, it can suppress. So we need to make sure that human rights are a prism to look at the development of artificial intelligence.
And when you're talking about that prism, we speak at a time when there's a lot of talk about how there should be regulation when it comes to social medias,
Yes.
especially for minors. In India, there's a lot of talk about this accident that happened. 23-year-old young man was actually mowed down by a minor who was driving recklessly to make and capture a social media reel. How do you assess the age of AI in times of misinformation, in times of deepfakes, social media and its impact on minors?
Yeah. So I think that's and I heard about that case, by the way. It's extremely important to be responsible about the use of AI, because we do not want to flush our brains with misinformation, with hate speech, with violent action. And especially brains that are still developing, especially teenage girls and boys, if they are filled with nonsense, which unfortunately often happens, their brains don't get trained in the way that they should.
The UN Tech Envoy Ambassador Gill was also talking about how women are also actively falling prey to deepfakes.
Yes, and that's, again, there is often a gender dimension to it. We see a lot of violence and misogyny, unfortunately, on social media. And again, it influences how people react. Sometimes when we look at nature, that we know how calming and soothing this is for us. But if you look at things that are untrue, that are violent, that are hateful, well, it poisons our minds, it poisons our souls, and it poisons our spirit. And I think that's why human rights is so important.
And when you talk about human rights, I also want to quickly bring you in on the kind of deeply divided geopolitical climate that we are witnessing, whether it is Ukraine, whether it is Gaza, and as somebody who's actually fronted the peace efforts in both these conflict-prone zones, how do you see AI is shaping up conflicts in today's day and age?
Well, first of all, we have 61 conflicts today. We only talk about
two or three. I agree.
And it's important to always remind ourselves that there are so many forgotten crises around the world. AI already plays a role today in the type of armament that is, in the type of weaponry that is used. I was recently in Sudan, and I saw the effects of very sophisticated drones. Some of course, they're totally automated. So it already, basically defines warfare. We see the same in Ukraine, for example.
Even misinformation has become a tool of warfare.
Absolutely.
And do you actually observe that repeatedly we are seeing that ceasefires are being disrespected? They've almost become just a verbal understanding or a PR machinery. Have you ever in the past witnessed this many number of ceasefire violations the way we are actively observing, at least in conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine, I can say for sure?
For us human beings, one thing is very clear. There's a right to truth and a right to science and a right to evidence. Unfortunately, when you have a lot of misinformation and disinformation, especially during war times, that right is out the window. We see it now even outside, even in peacetime, thrown out the window. And it's so important to honor and treasure this, because you need a consensus. You need to accept what the facts are in order to be able to take any decision.
All right. Quickly on the situation, the way it's spiraling out of control in Iran.
Right.
Not just domestically, but internationally as well. Media is all abuzz with reports in terms of when US could launch an attack. Nobody wants that, because we all know it will lead to a greater instability in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I'd like your thoughts.
Well, first of all, the human rights situation is awful. I mean, we have heard testimonies, indeed, that thousands and thousands of people were killed. People ended up in arbitrary detention. People are faced even with the death penalty. But the solution is not an external military intervention. The solution is something that has to be negotiated, but first and foremost, the national ownership within Iran. And I know this is very tough, and the pressure that we all can put on them to respect human rights, because human rights are a matter of international concern.
But now that the talks have been happening in Geneva without the presence of the United Nations, do you think that multilateralism is also being challenged at the moment?
Multilateralism is challenged, but we have the legitimacy, the convening power, and we represent the whole of the world. That's the United Nations, and no one can replace that.
Do you think it is time for multilateralism also to be approached afresh, with leading powers like India also now at the table, which is something they've been trying for years?
Absolutely. India, I mean, it's one of the major powers in the world today, and it's absolutely clear that India, we are not only looking up to India to play a much bigger role for the United Nations, for the world, with its traditions, with its...
Given that Prime Minister Modi has always said that the solution doesn't lie on the battlefield and peace is the eventual goal.
Absolutely. I mean, and peace is also what we need to cherish. Today we hear a lot of warmongering around the world. We hear that military solutions bring about peace. Actually, we see that too many conflicts are too long, too prolonged, and
when
don't
we
bring
also
peace.
talk about conflicts, Kashmir comes to mind. I want your thoughts on the role that terrorism is playing, terror infrastructure is playing. Just a day ago, India and France have mentioned in their joint declaration that they will be looking towards eliminating terror infrastructure by curbing on terror financing. France has vowed to play its role through the FATF. India has witnessed 2 deadly terror attacks last year.
Yes.
I'd like your thoughts.
No, of course, terrorism is something that's a scourge in today's world. It is also important to build trust with populations and to build confidence with populations. And again, human rights are a good guide for this. I mean, we need also in counter-terrorism efforts, we need to make sure that human rights are respected, because otherwise you lose the trust and the confidence that the population has. So we need a comprehensive approach to counter terrorism. And as I said, human rights plays a central role in that.
So when you're talking about a comprehensive role in human rights, High Commissioner Turk, my last question is going to be about how do you ensure that there's a comprehensive role? Why, how can we do that in a very deeply divided geopolitical climate where institutions are being challenged by leading global superpowers?
Human rights is mindfulness, because it brings us back to who we are, it brings us back to our rights, it brings us back to our origins, and human rights are nourished by each and every tradition around the world. It's something that is truly universal, and we need to honor and cherish it and embrace it to the fullest.